All right, all right. How's everyone doing? Welcome to our monthly financial wellness program, our financial wellness conversation, and that comes from our financial wellness ministry. Want to ask everybody that's watching on social media, if you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, if you could go ahead and share the post, I would be extremely appreciative. Again, everyone that's watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, if you can go ahead and share the post, would be extremely appreciative. And those on your friend list, I'm sure, would be appreciative also for the resources that will be presented today. I present to you the coordinator of our financial wellness ministry, Kiera Hall.
Hello, everyone. I am super excited about the conversation today. What I'm going to be doing is playing a video that's about 16 minutes long, and it's about the poverty programming trap. And then what we'll do is just take like a fine-tooth comb and really talk about and really dig through some of the key points that happen in the video, some of the message, how it stood out, and if anything maybe was a new way of thinking, or if it changed the way you thought. And so my hope is that everybody would be able to learn and grow from this. So I want to encourage you, as I play the video, to take notes and to pay attention. It's a really great video. And I really enjoyed watching it. And it has a lot of key PowerPoints that we talk about often in our ministry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to make sure my sound is sharing. And then we're going to kick off the meeting with the video. And then we're going to go into a great discussion about the video. So you'll want to be, taking some notes, writing down any questions, any comments, thoughts, because then we're going to have a great discussion after the video.
You're about to discover the poverty programming that's kept you stuck like Chuck in a pickup truck. Make sure you watch this entire video. You know what's really interesting? People will never behave consistently in a way that's inconsistent with their programming. I said that too fast. People will never behave consistently in a way that's inconsistent with their programming. In fact, your programming runs on your subconscious mind. So let's pretend for a minute that your mind is a supercomputer. Get it? Let's pretend. Okay, so let's pretend for a minute that your mind is a supercomputer. And you've got your subconscious mind and you've got your conscious mind. In a computer, you have to have an operating system. What is an operating system? An operating system is the main software of a computer that tells that computer what other software programs it can and cannot run. The problem with our supercomputer of our mind is most of us, we did not choose our operating system. The cultural hypnotic societal mechanism chose that for us. And the cultural hypnotic societal mechanism, which includes the schools we went to, the churches we've gone to, our parents, our neighbors, our siblings, our friends, our coworkers, our bosses, our employees, the media, the government, all of it has programmed us with what I call a failure operating system. And if you put a failure program in a computer with a failure operating system, it can run that program. But guess what? If you put success software in a computer that's programmed with a failure operating system, all you're going to get is an error message. By the way, that's why so many people, when they hear some truth about wealth, they have to resist it because their subconscious programming won't allow them to run that program. And so success and failure both operate on are produced from the subconscious mind, or what I like to call the automatic mind. I like to call our subconscious our automatic mind and our conscious mind our manual mind. All of the results, like 90% of the results in your life, are produced by your automatic mind, which means you're not even aware of it. It's running below the surface. It's happening automatically, and you don't even see it. But here's what's interesting. Other people who are not programmed like you can see your programming. How many of y'all picking up what I'm putting down? And see, what happens is when we hear some truth that's unfamiliar to us, the first thing we do is we resist it because, well, that can't be true because that doesn't go along with my paradigm. Because people will never behave consistently in a way that's inconsistent with their programming. But here's what's interesting. I don't know if y'all can remember back in the 80s, late 80s, when you'd have like the 8086 computer and the 8088s, and you had the floppy drives, and they came out with a new software system for the computer, came out with a new operating system. You had to uninstall the old operating system, which usually took a couple of hours, and then you had to keep putting these floppy disks in and taking one out, putting one in, taking one out, putting one in, and it took a long time to reprogram the operating system of that computer. Does anybody remember those days? Okay, good. A couple of us are old enough to remember those days. Okay, and so what happened is they'd make new software, but the new software wouldn't run on the old operating system, right? And so you had to pick a day where, okay, I'm gonna have to uninstall this operating system, and then I'm gonna have to set an alarm to wake up in the middle of the night and keep on putting these disks in so I can use my computer tomorrow. Well, the same way it took a long time back then to uninstall an operating system and reinstall a new one. It takes a long time for most people to uninstall their failure operating system and install a success operating system. That's why you have to stay plugged into information and content that is reprogramming you, because eventually, here's what's gonna happen. I promise you, you see somebody, how many of y'all notice that when you see somebody who's really, really good at something, they're really, really good, they make something so complex look effortless? Like, Michael Jordan was so much better than everybody else when he was in the NBA. When he played basketball, he made it look effortless. Tiger Woods made making birdies and eagles look like he was playing with a child's toy. Why? Because they had a totally different operating system going. But see, operating systems don't just affect us in sports, they affect us in every aspect of our lives. They affect us in our finances, they affect us in our businesses, and what happens is we resist because it's uncomfortable to uninstall that old programming. You know why it's uncomfortable? Because grandmama gave it to me. It's uncomfortable because mama gave it to me, because daddy gave it to me, because my uncle Sam gave it to me, and my Aunt Susie gave it to me, and so I don't want to take it out. My favorite teacher gave it to me, and my pastor gave it to me, and the deacon gave it to me, and we have all of this programming that's not serving us and not giving us the ability to serve anybody else. But guess what? Did you ever notice that people who are failing like miserably, they make that look effortless? No, I'm not trying to be funny. They're not saying, I'm just going to wake up and mess up my life today. It's just all the moves they do that day just mess up the whole day. Why? It's their programming. And now watch this. This poverty programming, like you have been programmed to be broke. The cultural, hypnotic, societal mechanism has programmed you to be sick, broke, misinformed, and fearful. And guess what? As long as you are running this program, you're going to be sick, broke, misinformed, and fearful. Either one of those things or all of those things. Why does the cultural hypnotic societal mechanism want us sick, broke, misinformed, and fearful? Because people who are sick, broke, misinformed, and fearful are easier to control than people who are healthy, wealthy, well-informed, and courageous. And so what we have to do is we have to recognize the program, but see, we have to recognize where it comes from. Do you understand every time the politicians lie to you and tell you they're going to end income inequality? How do you know they're lying? Because they can't end income inequality because income doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's the result of something. What's it the result of? It's a result of value that's created for somebody other than you. So until you eliminate value creation inequality, you can't eliminate income inequality. They're lying. The government wants you to think that businesses that are successful because the owners of those businesses are evil. But the reality is, the promoter of that message is the one that's evil. Now, there are some businesses that are evil. I'm not saying there are no businesses that are evil. There are some businesses where the owners have evil intention. But that's not generally the nature of business. The media, the movies. I'm not crazy about movies, but the movies that I hate the most, superhero movies. I can't stand them. They're so terrible. They have programmed so many people to be broke. Say, what do you mean? Like you never even thought about that before, right? See, they started programming you when you were a little kid. Anybody remember this guy named Superman, right? Superman. You remember who he was, right? He was an adopted poor little orphan from another planet. Who was his arch enemy? Lex Luthor, what was he? Multimillionaire. Subconsciously. They don't have, see, do you understand that every time a story is being told, it's being told on two levels? There's the covert story. That's the part that talks to your head. It's only there to distract you. And the overt story, that's the part that talks to your heart. It's there to program you. Okay, what about Spider-Man? Oh, another poor little orphan. Raised by his aunt and uncle. Oh, who's his arch enemy? Oh, that's right, the Green Goblin. He wasn't a multimillionaire, he was a multi-billionaire. They're always associating wealth with evil. And I know what you're thinking. See, I already know what you're thinking because I'm a mind reader. You're thinking, but Batman was rich? How many of y'all were thinking that? See, I knew it. I knew you were thinking. I knew, see, you got to get up early in the morning. You're going to catch me on that one. You're right. Batman was rich, but he's the only superhero with no superpowers. Now, which one would you rather do? Have a cool car or just fly? Okay, I'm not. I can't even go there yet. I can't go there yet, but I will. I'll touch on it since you brought it up. Okay, just be ready. Okay. So I know the other thing you're thinking. Yeah, but Iron Man's rich. Don't you? I'm reading your mind. I already told you. But watch this. Iron Man is a narcissistic jerk who takes advantage and walks of everybody and walks on everybody. So if they make a superhero that's rich, they always give them an undesirable character trait. What about the Black Panther? See, here's what the enemy did with the Black Panther. Black people, we felt so disenfranchised that, unfortunately, far too many of us, just because something's black, we want to go with it. See, here's the problem I had with the Black Panther. They were literally in the movie teaching ancestor worship. Ancestor worship? What am I worship my dead ancestors for? God's the one that made him. I think I'm going to worship him. Black Panther was cool. He was rich. He was cool. He was smart. He could fight. He did all that. But they had to throw that answer because the enemy is always trying to trip us up. And he'll use whatever method necessary, whatever method possible. See, I'm going to tell you something while I'm on this subject. Our primary identifying factor should not be our color, and it should not be our gender. It should not be our educational level. It should not be the amount of money that we have. It should not be an association that we're a part of. It should not be our fraternity. It should not be our neighborhood. It should not be our country club. Our primary identifying factor of our lives should be the fact that we are redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. And if that's not first, you got the wrong thing in first place. I am not black first. By the way, Martin Luther King dreamed of a day when a man would no longer be judged by the color of his skin, but by the content of his character. And now we want to be judged. We just want to judge things by the color of the skin. Do you understand every time you go along with something that's, as a black person, every time we go along with something that's black and whack, we're just doing what the oppressors of our ancestors, we're agreeing with the oppressors of our ancestors. The most important thing about us is the color of our skin. It's not. I personally like being a brother. You know what I'm saying? I like my brother swag, you know what I'm saying? I like it. But guess what? If I was white, I would enjoy that just as much. Because watch this. I am made exactly the way God desired me to be, and I'm not in competition with anybody. So I can celebrate you, and it don't take anything from me, and I can celebrate me, and it don't take anything from you. And if you think me celebrating me takes something from you, I'm not the one with the problem. And if I think that you celebrating you is taking something from me, I'm the one with the problem. James, the brother of the Lord, he wrote a book in the New Testament called James. His name was really Yaakov, which is Jacob, but King James, and they changed it to James, and it's not James, it's Yaakov. But anyway, James, the brother of Jesus, here's what he said. He didn't say James, the brother of the Lord. He didn't say James, the senior pastor at the church of Jerusalem. He didn't say Reverend James, the senior pastor of the church of Jerusalem. Here's what he said. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ. That was his primary identifying factor. And if it's good enough for the half-brother of the Lord, who's a senior pastor at the church of Jerusalem, it's good enough for me for it to be my primary identifying factor. We have been programmed by the government, by the media. Do you realize that Hollywood started waging war on business in the 1970s? We didn't even see it. By the time the average American turns 18 years of age, they've seen 10,000 people murdered on television and movies by business people and entrepreneurs. They've seen more people murdered on television by entrepreneurs and business people than even career criminals. No wonder people don't want to go into business. All they want to do is save the planet. They've been programmed. But let me say this. You weren't born with any ideas. All of the beliefs you have, you got them from somewhere. So you might want to check the source before you start running 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction and end up off a cliff somewhere. See, here's what we got to do. We got to understand that the results that my life is producing those results automatically. And so, if I want to produce some different results, I have to reprogram my automatic mind. I have to be intentional, and I have to be aware. I have to be aware of the fact, like, where is this coming from? I know from Genesis chapter 1, there are 4 levels of value. The lowest level is implementation. You use your muscles I'm not going to do it that way. Use your muscles over time. That's the resource you use to make money. This is why you're broke. What do I mean by that? Wealth is a spiritual result. Wealth is a spiritual result. Wealth is spiritual. It is not physical in its nature. It is spiritual in its nature. It's spiritual in its nature because money that you have can be in more than one place at a time. Only spiritual things can be in more than one place at a time. The thing that gives money its value, there's nothing backing the money. There's nothing backing this money I have in my pocket. The thing that makes it valuable is the message that it carries. A $100 bill is more valuable than a penny, even though the material the penny's made out of is worth more than the material the $100 bill is made out of. So if money were material, a penny would be worth more than a $100 bill. But a $100 bill is worth 10,000 times more. Why? Because on a penny it says 1 cent, which means 1% of $1. On a $100 bill it says $100, which means 100 times $1. So the message that it carries is the thing that makes it valuable. But watch this. The other reason it's valuable is because we believe it's valuable. So the two things that make money valuable are the message that it carries and the faith that it creates. Language is spiritual and faith is spiritual. Wealth is a spiritual outcome. But muscles are a physical resource. Time is a limited resource. We're multiplying a physical resource times a limited resource, and we're attempting to produce an unlimited spiritual result. No wonder you're broke. Second level, unification. Unification, second level of value. On that level, we use our management skills to make money. We're not broke. You might make anywhere from $40,000 to $250,000 a year. But if a company's paying you $250,000 a year, here's what they want you to know. They want you to know they own you. They don't care nothing about your child's recital, your grandfather on his deathbed, nothing, right? What's the next level? Above that dotted line is where wealth begins to create it. This is communication, is the second highest level of value. The highest level of value is imagination. Most, like here, your income on the communication level is going to be somewhere between $100K a year if you sell cars, and it might be $100 million a year if you're an A-list actor or an A-list singer, or maybe you write songs, or maybe you write movies. $100 million a year. These are communication. Imagination, these are people who come up with the best idea. Or the resource you use here is your mouth. You gotta have a mouth, and you gotta learn how to use it. Pretty much everybody here qualifies for the first part, now you gotta start working on the second part. And then your mind, the resource you use up here, for imagination, are your mind and your money to make money. When you do that, this will take your life to a whole nother level. But you've been programmed to stay down here or to work real hard and get a degree so you can move up here, and this you don't even value. Do you realize, and I'm gonna end with this, in business school, they don't even teach you how to sell. You go to school for 6 or 8 years to learn how to be a lawyer. They teach you how to practice all this law. They don't teach you how to get any clients to practice law for. You go to school for 8 to 20 years to learn how to be a doctor, and they teach you how to work on the human body. They don't teach you how to get any human bodies to work on. We've been programmed to be broke, and poverty programming is costing you a fortune. That's why I always say, if you're broke, if you make less than $50,000 a month, you can't afford to be watching television. You need to be using that time to read some books to learn a new skill. But don't you want to see them? I don't want to see them. I want to be them. I want somebody watching me live my life on TV. Okay, I'm done. So that's how people are programmed to be broke for the rest of their life. Don't let the cultural hypnotic societal mechanism program you to be broke, because your family deserves better than that. God bless you. Like, subscribe, share, all the rest of that YouTube.
All right. All right. So, man, that was a lot to unpack. That was a lot. That was really powerful. So the first comment that he made was, people will never behave consistently in a way that's inconsistent with their programming. And so I think it's interesting. So I was programmed in a way growing up to, not cuss, be very modest in the way I dress, just like in the way my parents raised me. And so for me, even when I was younger and I tried to cuss and act like my friends, people would pick on me and be like, you don't even sound right. Because I was behaving in a way that was inconsistent with my programming. It's like I had to try hard to be in a way, because that was not my programming. And so, we all have been programmed, by our parents and just whoever, really just like molded us up, maybe it's grandparents or aunts or uncles or whoever. And we have this programming. And some of us have been blessed with really positive programming that says, you can do it. You're smart. You're beautiful. You can do all things. Like some of us have been programmed with some pretty good things. Some of us have been programmed with some pretty bad things. Maybe some of us have been programmed with, you ain't never gonna be nothing. You stupid. You ugly. You dumb. You broke. Like some of us have been programmed with some negative stuff. I know that is a reality. But the truth is, people will never behave consistently with a way that's inconsistent with their programming. So if we want to change our behaviors, we have to change our programming. And I think it goes back to the scripture, as a man thinketh, so is he. And so the things that are in the heart and the mind, they flow. And so, as soon as I heard that, that's immediately what I thought. As a man thinketh, so is he. And I was just talking to someone about this today, actually a couple people, about how, our inner world really determines our outer world. And so a lot of times when we want to change, and I, drop a chat in the comment or raise your hand if you can relate to this, but a lot of times we want to change and we start working on the outside to change. And then we fall back into our old ways because our program is still the same. So like we work hard, and once we get tired, we just fall back to the way we're used to doing things and we don't stay consistent. Is that me? Or like, I know that's me, but anybody else ever like tried to change and you changed for a little while and you fell back to the old way? And it was because there was not a deep change within. The programming hadn't changed. But when the programming changed, the actions change, the outside results change. And that's exciting, because then that shows that we actually have the power to change, and so I'll stop right there. Does anybody have any comments on that, or do you want to go on to the next point that you heard? But that's a huge one for me. And actually, I'm gonna say one more thing real quick. No, actually, I'm gonna hold off on that. Byron, go ahead and say what you want to say.
Yeah, no, I was just listening to you when you say about change, and come back and still do the same thing. It's like, changing clothes and your appearance on the outer side. But I think with change, what I'm figuring out is the mind. The mind, the one that controls everything. If you don't change your mindset, and that's the beginning of change right there. It comes from your mindset, because the Bible says, you said it earlier, what a man thinketh, so is he. You know what I'm saying? We sin with word, thought, or deed, what we think about it, the same thing. We have to change our mindset. And that's the beginning of acceptance of something that need to be done. Because when you change your mindset, it's like opening up an avenue for something to come in to grow off of. That's all I got right now.
That's so good. You made me think of something. Have y'all ever met somebody, and some of you are these people, to where they go to a job and they could be brand new, but in a very short amount of time, they move up through the ranks, they're in leadership and they're doing well and they get the raises and they make more money, or they do a business and they thrive in it. And there's some people, they just thrive. And then there's other people who they go to a job and they never move up and they just kind of stay in the same pace. And that really, it goes back to, it's not about like the time or how much, because what it's really about is, what is your programming? And if you're programmed to lead or be a manager, to, excel, you just gonna do that. It don't matter where anybody puts you. And so he talks about how we have to be intentional and aware. And so how do we bring this over to finances? Well, we can look at our current financial situation. We can look at our bank account, and we can look at our income. We can look at that, and that shows us where we are. And if we want to adjust, then we have to be, if we want to be in a different place. One of my friends, she always says, you don't get what you want in life, you get who you are. And so if we want to change our situation, we want to, be more prosperous, we want things to be better, then I think this is a step a lot of people forget. And sometimes I forget, because we can get right into the actions on tackling the problem. But really, I think the first and foremost thing is that we have to tackle our programming. What are we saying to ourselves? What are we thinking? Because I know I'm guilty of this, of wanting a result, moving towards the result, everything starts working out. And then I do self-sabotage, and then I go right back, even though I was moving forward, but moving forward was moving into a place of discomfort, a place I wasn't used to. And so now, like, our brain does this. If a stove is hot, our brain actually signifies us, hey, that's hot, don't touch. It's not our hand that tells us hot, it's our brain. Or something's cold, our brain tells us. In the same way our brain warns us, our brain naturally has a sphere that'll warn us about certain situations, certain people. And so instead of doing the thing we should be doing that will take us to the next level, our brain is firing off fear, the failure programming, like he said. And we have to basically embrace, do it anyway, and allow ourselves to, we actually have to fight to reprogram, be transformed by the renewing of your minds, Romans 12:1-2. And we have to renew our minds consistently. And I think not just once a day, all throughout the day, by what we're speaking, what we're saying, what we're reading, who we're listening to. I heard somebody today tell me, oh, I really don't want, that much money. I don't. And I see this guy, I forget what his name is, but I just enjoy his videos. I love seeing Shaq, and I just love the videos where there's people who have wealth, and then they just bless people. They're like, yep, got the groceries, this and that. And like, I've seen people just really sad or really struggling. And I'm just like, I want to help more. But if I'm okay with just, well, I don't really need that much, well, then I can't really help that much. I want to be in a position where, God forbid, one of my mentors, and I won't say a name just to not disclose private information, but somebody who, is a mentor of mine, was sharing with me that one of their family members was diagnosed with diabetes, and their family member could not afford the machine they needed to really live and be okay. They couldn't afford it. They're, on the income at their job. And my mentor is wealthy. And so they actually just send the person every month the money for the machine so they can be healthy, so that they can have the help that they need. And so I hear that and I'm like, yep, I want to be able to serve in that way. I want to be able to do that. But in order for me to do that, guess what? I have to change my programming, and then when I change my programming, my results will change, and my results are a mirror. My results tell me what my programming is. Yeah. And so the question becomes, how do we change our programming? And I don't want to say the answer. I want to see if anybody else has any comments.
Well, I'm gonna just go ahead, Real.
Yeah, I think we just have to be careful, because sometimes people will say something, and then the point that they drive is really the same thing. And so when programming is presented as a negative, unless it's the programming that is the way I think you should be. And so there's a scripture in Proverbs 22:6. It says, train up a child, program a child in the way that they should go, and when they're older, they will not leave it. And so I think we just have to be real careful and have a relationship with God, and we have to know God's personal desire and a purpose for our lives, because many people think that, yeah, the way that you've been trained or the way that you've been programmed is wrong, and I have the right way for you to be programmed. And I'm not sure that that's a healthy way to look at it, because all you're saying is don't be programmed this way, be programmed that way. And I think you have to know God for yourself. I don't think that wealth is an indicator of holiness or righteousness. I think God provides, and then God utilizes and gives it as a tool. But I don't think it's an indicator of righteousness. An indicator of righteousness or having the Spirit of God are the fruits of the Spirit. And so, many of the things he was saying, I agree. Yeah, those things are possible, and you need to be able to think, and so as a man thinks, so is he. But I don't think just overall you can just lay that and make it appear, paint a picture that's really not an absolute truth. And so I just that's the piece that I wanna warn us of, because sometimes we go and chase things trying to be like people or have the things that people value, and it might not necessarily be what God had planned for my life, but because people value it so much, they think that everybody should have or produce what I value, and that's not how God created us to be.
Yep. And I like how he talked about the enemy is always trying to trip us up. And even when it comes to programming, I think that there was a line, and I was looking for it in my notes because I thought I wrote it down, and he was talking about it with the movie. But basically how the enemy, where is it? Oh, the programming from society and from culture is to be broke, sick, misinformed, and fearful. And I think there are different definitions of wealth. One person might say, well, I want this much. Another person might say, I want this much. And my definition of it is basically your job optional. And so basically what has happened is you create it for yourself. You become financially independent. You're no longer dependent. And for someone, and I meet with different people all the time. And for some people, they say, well, $5,000 a month. If I could have that in retirement, I would be comfortable. Some people say 10,000 a month. Some people, and so then that dollar figure, or when it comes to income, that really is going to vary by person. Because I know some people who make, 6 figures a year and they're completely content and they have freedom and they're enjoying their life. They love it. There's also some people who they don't make any money. They live off the land, they grow their own stuff, and they, live in certain way. I have a friend who I'm so grateful I get the opportunity to support. And if anybody wants to support her, let me know. But she has taken her life to be a missionary. And so she doesn't earn any income. She just simply lives off whatever people bless her with. And her whole purpose is just simply missions. But I do think that it is important to be aware of the programming. And when you're aware, you start to see it like in everything. And it's really interesting. And I really think it's a trick of the enemy of just like all the things that we're programmed to think is okay. Like even, one thing today, I did it. I went to McDonald's for breakfast. I was rushing. I dropped my kids off. I was like, man, what am I going to eat before this doctor's appointment? And that was like the one thing that was like super close. And like, it was just like right there. So I got my egg and cheese McGriddle, hash brown, and a Sprite. And, my stomach's paying for it. But one thing, when you look at the commercials, that thing looks so good. The pictures look so beautiful. It's like you have the desire more for what's bad for you than for what's good for you. And so that programming, I think, is so important. And if we're not aware of it, we'll stick in it, in that mindset, and not even realize we're in it. There's a gentleman I was speaking to yesterday, and I think he told me he was like 400 pounds, or he was really heavy. And he was saying to me like, man, it's so unfortunate. A lot of like Black people, man, they, love to eat their food and, almost kind of look down on being slim or like, being healthy. And there's like this negative programming actually towards health. And then, some people pick on me and say like, oh, well, she eat rabbit food. But really, I just eat like a lot of fruits and vegetables and like things that are really healthy for us. But if our programming is unhealthy and we look at things that are healthy, like really negative, we don't like it, it's going to be hard to try to be healthy when our programming is unhealthy. It's going to be hard to be debt free if our programming, I saw somebody post this, and you might hear me saying it, and I saw your post, and hopefully you won't be offended by what I'm saying, but I'm just trying to make a point. They basically said, man, if I see Klarna available, I'm using Klarna. Even if I got the cash, I'm not paying for it. And in my mind, I'm like, ooh, that's a trap. That's a debt trap. And so, but society is programmed to swipe it, put it on debt. But God wants us to be programmed to be the lender, not the borrower, to not be in debt, to owe no man anything, but to love him. And so, I'm becoming very sensitive and aware as I hear things around me, and I'm like, ooh. And sometimes I know some people go through something really tough to make them go, ooh, I don't want to be in debt no more. Okay, let me get it together. But the results my life is producing those results automatically. Mm-hmm.
Kiara, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
I was listening to you earlier when you were saying, like a definition of being wealthy, and I just wrote down a few things. And I was listening to, like when people make six figures and this and that. So I wrote down 3 little key things of being wealthy in where you at, to meet people where they are or what situation they may be in. And not saying they're settled in it, but that's the hand they was dealt. Because I look at education, when you're talking about 6 figures and stuff, education is a big part of wealth. Education, because education open up doors in your mind to be able to figure out the grid that's in front of you. And then I put on here, like when people like made 50,000 or whatever a year and things, I look at health, good health and a job with benefits, be able to sustain if you get hurt or sick on a job, you got something to continue to pay your bills and this and that. Because it's a saying that my mama used to say. She used to say, I'd rather be happy in a shack than sad in a mansion. Because now I done overexalted myself with all this stuff. I got all this stuff, but I'm not happy. But in this shack, I'm just living normal life with all these worries, and that's it. And that's the hand that I was talking about that's dealt. So that's my definition of wealth: is first get some education for further knowledge, and you can get up there in those categories. But just the average person, I remember we had a sermon, or it was in one of our classes. It said, "I want more." That's the mentality that you got to have. I want more. If you don't have that mindset, then you're going to be just settled for what you got. But it's so far that each one of us can go. It's going to be a limit, and you just don't know where it's at. But with the mindset, I want more, you'll never know where it's at. So just keep saying, I want more. That's all I got, Kira. But that's some good stuff.
Awesome. I love it. Man, this just really, y'all think about it. I have to figure out how to change my alarm on my phone. If anybody can help me out, please help me. I don't know how to change it. My phone is set up to where when my alarm goes off, it automatically plays the news. And I hate it because I turn it off so quick. So maybe it's good because I'm like, oh, let me turn that off. Because it immediately, this fool got shot up. This person was this. And it's just like negative, fear, sick, death. And there's a phrase, what you focus on grows. And there was a point in my life where, like, before I read the book Secrets of a Millionaire Mindset, I don't know what I was focused on, but it wasn't my net worth. And one of the things the book says, well, if you just get a tracker you just start just tracking it, that it's going to increase just simply from you like focusing on it, being mindful of it. So I started being very mindful. I'll check my bank accounts every day, review my debts, start paying stuff off a little here and there, just being very mindful. And it was really interesting because as I started to be more mindful about money, I started managing my money better because I was thinking about being mindful of it, as opposed to, I know plenty of people who make, 50, 60, 70, 100,000 a year, and 25 years later, nothing to show for it, because there was no awareness, no intention, no focus on saving or preparing for the future. And, as we're on here tonight, I hope, especially for the young people, I was just talking with the principal at my children's school today. We were talking about it. And, for some people, it's a programming to just think about today and not think about tomorrow. And so because people are not thinking about tomorrow, I saw an article that was basically saying like elderly people were a high consumer of cat food, and that elderly people were eating this because they didn't have money to like really afford like real food. And it breaks my heart when someone is, poor and struggling. And so my prayer is that through these meetings, that those who are working and they're young, that they might be a bit uncomfortable. Maybe you don't make a lot of money, but maybe, I pray that you might maybe cut down expenses or go for the older car, go for, the used, and be mindful to say, okay, you know what? I do financial meetings all the time. And, whenever I talk about a financial independence number and being able to retire and not have to go back to work and be job optional, and, how much you need to put away every month to hit your goal, and like how much you actually need to live that type of lifestyle, like what is your financial independence number? A lot of people are shocked. And when they see the number, they're like, well, man, I'm just gonna have to play the lottery to get that, because there's no belief that they could get it, when really they could, with discipline, planning, being focused, intentional on it. But if we're programmed to think that we can't get it, would we ever try? Like if we're programmed, like somebody told me yesterday, well, I'm always going to be in debt, so I don't even care about it. Well, that's a programming that I'm always going to be in debt, so why care? Like but if I'm, then I'll never be debt free. But if I begin shifting my programming and saying, okay, you know what? I can be debt free. I can, have more. I can be healthy. I can, and I think it's a trick of the enemy to make us think that we should be like struggling. Because if we think that we should, then we'll settle for that. We won't even attempt or move in the direction to get more. If we feel like, well, hey, I'm just big boned and they can't lose no weight, we would never even move in the direction of losing weight if we feel like we can't lose weight. Or if maybe we tried to lose weight and we're unsuccessful at it, there might be programming in our mind that says, well, what's the point of trying? Because I can't. And so our programming is just simply the way that we think about things. And if we want things to change, we have to change the way we think about things, and whatever that change is for you. And for everyone, I would say strongly that we should always be growing until we're in the grave. We should always be growing and improving and better. And so for one person, they might view change and growth as one thing, but you're kind of even beyond the level they're at. And so your change and growth is different. But I feel like as long as we're being intentional about our programming, then we could do so much. And our programming should be what's in the Bible. Like, what does God say about us? And if that is our programming, that is amazing. But I believe we have to read the Bible daily for that to be our programming, because we're constantly getting a whole bunch of stuff that's not Bible all the time. Social media, the news, people talking everywhere, not Bible, not Bible, not Bible. So we have to be so intentional. Say, okay, what does God say about me? What does God say about my health? What does God say about my marriage? What does God say about my finances? What does God say? And when you look at what God says, it's all good. It is all good. And so if there is not good, then I think that we should not settle, and that we should continue to trust and believe that what God said is so. And when we program our mind like that, I think what God says so will become so in our life, because we're having faith and focusing on that. So I'll be quiet because I see Byron. It looks like you were maybe.
Oh no, you was doing good. I just been jot down a few things because I was listening to you when you were saying like you have seen people that had a lot of money and made good money and stuff, and you look at them 10, 12 years ago. And this stuff that I'm presenting to y'all, I learned this through our ministry, that a lot of time people do that, Kia, because they didn't have any structure. That's the word that's missing, structure. You got to have structure. And I got noted back here, it's got to be your mindset. You got to have your mindset to do these things and everything. You know, sometimes we have to change our way of what we doing things. And I put on here triggers. If you know when you trying to do things that's causing extra money, me, it was playing lottery. You know, we all family here, and I have to tell the truth. That's the only way I can help myself. Yours might be sharp and this and that. So if you got these triggers that's causing this extra, because it ain't nothing but stuff, put yourself out of the man. Your sister, your cousin, Carol, let's go to the mall. You know you don't need to be going to the mall because there are triggers that if you go in there, you know you can't just go in there. It's almost like eating one Oreo cookie. You know what I'm saying? You're going to eat more than one cookie. You're going to buy something. So we have to change our mindset, what you were saying, of things that we're doing to see progress. And for his bills, this is how I handle it. I have got myself in some things that instead of me saying, I ain't going to pay you, in my mindset, I just ain't going to pay what y'all say, but I'll write you a $5 check and send it in. So when it all said and done, I'm doing something. I just didn't just stop, because I got myself over the head and I figured it out. And for when you were saying about debt, like, we gonna have debt, man. You'll never own anything. You have to get away from people with that negativity talk. You got to get around settings like this, people that's positive, trying to get your mindset off of it. We know, long as we live, we want to be comfortable. So being comfortable is not something that I'm gonna concentrate on. I'm gonna just continue to do it. You know, you got a house and you got light bill. I'm gonna have light bill. Yeah, you gonna have to have light in your house. You're not finna go back in the Stone Age and get candles, but don't think about it. It's just something that you have to do. But outside of what you need to do, when you say, God said, I'll supply all your needs according to my riches and glory, we talking about right here, all this other stuff that we don't need. Am I making any sense? But that's all I got. But I'm just writing down a few things that all this, what I keep hearing you saying, is all changing that mindset. That's the only way, because I hear we say, what? If you keep doing the same thing and looking for different results, what is that?
Right. Insanity. Right.
And I can't say we, because I don't need everybody telling me, well, that's you, not me. Oh yeah. I feel I've fallen short and keep doing the same thing. Look at me, know why? Because I tried to do it my way.
Yeah.
And the best thing we have here at Greater Bethel, we said every Sunday, write the vision down, make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. That's all I got right now, Kiara.
Yeah, that's good.
So one thing, and I think it's I think we're saying a lot of key words. We're talking about programming, training, and things like that. And I think Paul said it this way: I put my body under subjection, so after I preach to others, I myself would not be a castaway. And he's talking about some spiritual things, but the idea is saying he disciplines his body, he has restraint, and he has a bigger picture than what's in front of him right now. And so I think, when it comes to, to even when we deal with the money area of our lives, and so if I look at a scripture and I see in Proverbs 13:22 where it says, "Good people leave an inheritance to their to their grandchildren, but the sinner's wealth is passes to the godly." And so I said, okay, if I want to be considered good in the eyes of God, what are some things that I need to do to make sure that my plans and my vision is beyond me? It goes two generations beyond me. And so how is it that when I leave this world, that I can have a financial impact on my grandchildren, my children, and my wife? And so that means that and so I don't necessarily, have to have this number in my head that I have to be able to make this much or do all these, but I have to show the discipline and restraint, and then ability to create wealth, so that those basic things, those are the basic things, that you leave an inheritance for your grandchildren and your children and your spouse. That's the basis. So how is it that I put myself in a position? And so I think about, what are the things that I'm spending my money on? Am I spending my money on things that are gaining value? Do I have a real good investment type of mind to where it's just not wasted? And not that people can't just do things that they enjoy that might not gain anything, but you really have to be disciplined and have restraint, because you see, there's a vision bigger than my temporary or my current happiness. But there's also, I'm playing chess and I'm trying to line up with the scripture, and that's going to look different, for different people. And but I think when you have the long game in, and so I'm not really critical of people for the things that they like to buy, but you still got to look at what am I dealing with, and am I looking at the long game? Do I have a vision for what I'm dealing with? And so, some people, like cars, and so they might spend 70, 80, $90,000 on a car. That's not really my thing. But, there are things that I do like. I like my tools. I like my toys. I like things that I like. And so I might spend more money on those things than other people. And so I can't be judgmental of what people spend their money on. But however you spend it, you have to look farther than the now. And for me, it's am I stretching it all the way to where my grandchildren will be impacted when I leave? Can I provide, something that will make them not have to start at ground zero, but can I provide some type of inheritance for my grandchildren, my children, and my wife? And then so I think that's I think about my great grandfather Papa that lived in Quitman, Georgia. So people would probably look at his life and think that he was, that he was poor, or he was this, or he was that. He was just a AME preacher, but he was smart. And so although he pastored small rural churches, but he was able to use his money wisely and purchase 100 acres of land, and then use that land to create wealth and create income. And so he might not have looked like a lot, but he was disciplined, he was restrained. But how many people owns 100 acres of land? You got hogs and corn and beans and all kinds of stuff. I mean, he used that land to produce money that cared for his children, and it even blessed me, his great grandchild. And so that's really what I think about is, and Byron kind of mentioned it. He was like education. He figured out, what did it take to gain the knowledge to be able to affect generations after me. And I think that's really what it takes: discipline and restraint. And people can do it how you want it. People can say, hey, I want to be a millionaire, a billionaire. I just really want to be. I want to know that I'm putting together a good plan so that my grandchildren are impacted when God takes me away from here.
I like that. I like that. I like that, Reverend Ross. Kiara, if you don't mind, can I just read 2 verses of a scripture?
Oh, I don't mind at all.
Okay, I'm gonna read it out of the book of Matthew, the 6th chapter. I'm gonna read verse 19 through verse 21. It say, "Do not lay up yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And the reason I said that, I was just trying to think while Red was giving that remark that he made, and something just told me to open up my Bible, because we have to figure out a way to leave something for our generation family to have a head start. If it ain't nothing but I'm just throwing an idea out there, like final expense on a burial before one of your grandkids or one of your kids, where if something happened, at least granddaddy had that set up where you wouldn't have a Goldman fund. It's a way that we could do something with what we make. It's no excuse. I like that guy you had on that time, Kiera, that they thought he had all that education and this and that, and this guy was good. He was on one of your workshops. I think he dealt with real estate. Yeah, I think, yeah. What he dealt with, real estate? Or something, yeah. But he came up the ranks.
Probably.
And he was just showing that, anybody can do things. He was amongst people that was educated, and they thought he was educated with them, but I think he didn't have nothing but a high school education at that time. But he succeeded. But his example was that if I can do it, you can do it. You only gonna get out of life what you put in it, what you expect. It's almost like going to church and you asking somebody who preaching Sunday. You already coming in there with the wrong idea. Regardless of who preaching, I'm coming in here to get something from this. And that's life. I'm coming in this life to try to get something and make a difference. But that's all I got, Kiera. I don't want to.
But when I look at your scripture that you used right there, it's about what the treasure is. And so if God says that we're the lender and not the borrower, I do need to think in a way to where I could be helpful, to where I can help lift someone and help them to get into a position to where they can become lenders. And so, but if I don't have the right mindset, I hold on to it so much where it's got, God blesses me. It's like that young rich ruler came to Jesus by night and wanted to just ask him, what must I do? And he's like, I do this. Jesus, hey, that's good, man. You own it. You ain't got but one more thing to do. Sell everything that you have and give it to the poor. And then, because it was a treasure, I think that's why his response was like it was.
That's great.
And so we use these things are tools. These resources are tools. They shouldn't be treasures to us, because if God says release it, if God says go and whatever, okay, I've reached billionaire status, and now God says go and find the so many poorest people, and that are hardworking, go and pay off their mortgages. Okay, God used what He gave me as a tool, and when I'm obedient, He's going to bring more. But if it was a treasure to me, now it can't be used to glorify God, because in my heart it was a treasure. So I think we do the things that we do so that God can use us, but don't allow them to become a treasure to where now we worship them more than we do the will of God. And so they are resources that are helpful to the kingdom, that can help empower people, help people to get a leg up so that they can begin to become lenders and not borrowers. But we have to have the right mindset about what this thing is. And all it is, it's a tool. It's not a symbol of righteousness. It's not a symbol. It's not a status. It's a tool.
I like that. That's good, man.
Yes. And I want to close us out with like just a real quick thought. And so I'm going to share my screen and show y'all something real quick that's pretty cool. So we've been talking about the, poverty trap, right? And I want to show you all something, and my hopes is that, if somebody's watching this that that maybe it might shift their perspective, cause them to think a little bit differently about money. So imagine you're 40 years old and you want to retire at age 65. You make 48,000 a year, and you say, well, I would like 48,000 a year at retirement, and you currently have $25,000 saved, and you're expecting 16. What was that? Uh-oh. And you're expecting about $1,600 from Social Security. Uh-oh. So when we calculate it, in that scenario, 48,000 a year lifestyle, by the time you're 65, your financial independence number, the amount of money that you're going to need is going to be 1.2 million to live a 48,000 a year lifestyle. So $1 million is actually not even wealthy. It gives you a 48,000 a year lifestyle. And what this is showing is that if you were earning 3% rate of return, you need to put away 2,600 to hit that goal. 6%, you need to put away 1,600. 10%, you need to put away 696. On the stock market is averaged between 10 and 12% over the last 100 years. And so, and then what this part down here is saying is that by the time you're 65, you actually going to need 97,000 to buy what 48,000 buys today. I remember an older gentleman was telling me his first car was $2,000. He was like in his 70s. I'm like, what? $2,000 for a car? He was like, yeah, it was so nice. It was red, it was brand new. And I'm looking like, what in the world? You know, and, you know, then the cars went up 10, 12,000. Now they like 30, 40,000. And guess what? 30 years from now, they're going to be even more. Everything goes up. That's what's just been happening over time. And so when it comes to thinking of the future, you got to keep that calculated in your mind. And when it comes to the poverty trap is to not have a plan for the future. That's poverty trap. The poverty trap is to not be disciplined. A poverty programming trap is to not go and get an assessment and figure out what your numbers are and where you stand and where you're at. I meet with people who are like, man, I wish I would have met with you 15 years ago. I'm like, well, I wasn't old enough 15 years ago, but I get what you're saying. The poverty programming trap. So today I pray that if you're sitting on this Zoom or you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube or, you know, you're watching us live, that you would take a step away from the poverty programming trap. And if you've never sat with a financial advisor, financial guide, and got your numbers and figure out where you stand and, you know, a game plan, you know, what I do is I help people figure out, okay, what's going to be your date that you're out of debt? Then we can take the money you put towards debt, put that towards retirement. What number do you need to have so that one day you can start working, so that you're not 80 years old and you have to work or you're going to be broke, but that you actually can be comfortable. You know, what do you want to leave for your children? How do you make that work? You know, how can you, you know, pass down? How can you educate your children so that they don't lose the wealth you stored up? Because some people, they build wealth and then their children waste it away. Why? Poverty programming trap. Children didn't know. And so my prayer today is that, you know, that I'm a resource. I have a phenomenal team and we do complementary needs analysis to really help people with their goals. I have a team of amazing agents, and Lily came on tonight. She's on my team. I love Lily. And, but I just pray that you would be aware, you'd be intentional, and don't allow yourself to fall into that poverty programming trap. Don't allow it. Don't allow yourself to be dependent on the government. Do not allow it. Get yourself in a position where you can be independent and you start where you stand, and that's okay. You start where you stand and it's nothing to be ashamed of, but you know, like Byron said, you got to write the vision, make it plain upon the table. How can you write the vision if you don't know what the vision is? So you got to get clear about, what do you want your life to look like? What do you want it to be? For me, I want my life to look like taking my children all over the world. We're not just going to look at the Great Wall of China in a book. I want to take them to the Great Wall of China. We're not just going to talk about the pyramids in Egypt. I want to take them to the pyramid in Egypt. And so what do you want your life to look like? And what does it take to get there? Don't fall into the poverty programming trap. Whatever the news try to tell you, or, you know, people of color, people from this area can't get nowhere. I don't care where you live. There is somebody, it don't matter where you came from, where you live, what your education is. You could be homeless right now, but your past does not define like it does not define you. What defines you is your programming. And when you have the programming of God or program the enemy want to come to steal, kill, and destroy. And Jesus came so that we can have life and life more abundantly. And so I'm all about whole life success, not that whole life mess. And so whole life success is I'm fighting for my marriage for it to be healthy and communicating, fighting for my finances so that I am wealthy and I'm abundant, that I can be used by God. I'm fighting for, my faith, that I study my Bible, that I'm disciplined and I'm praying every day, that I thank God every day, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. I'm fighting for my family. I'm not going to allow the world to raise my kids. I even pay attention what music they're listening to. I don't care how good that sounds song. What is it talking about? It was a song we had to turn off. It sounded like an innocent song. Then they talked about people being naked. Turned it off like, no, I don't care how friendly this song sound, but they got some weird words in it, so fight for our family, fight for our children, not allow the world to program them. And all this stuff is a poverty programming trap, the gambling and the drugs and, being sick, none of that is from God. And so I just pray that as people plug in, that their program would shift. You got to keep coming to church, keep coming to meetings, keep reading, keep learning, watching on videos on YouTube. And the poverty programming trap is something we have to actively go against because it's surrounding us on every side. People feeling hopeless. They feeling like they can't get ahead. They feeling like they stuck, like nothing can't get better. They playing a lottery because they feel like that's the only way they're going to come up. When the truth is, if you can be disciplined and you can learn, you can come up, but you have to change the programming, the internal programming. Be reborn and allow your mind to be like the mind of Christ. Focus on things that are pure, holy, noble, true. And so yeah, y'all, let's not let the enemy get us with this poverty programming trap, and let's excel in every area of our life. Every area. Why? Because we are worthy. Jesus died on the cross for us, shed his blood for us. We are destined to reign, created in the image of God, who gave us authority. He gave us authority. And so we got to walk in that and know that we are children of God, children of the Most High. And so God did not create us to be stuck in this poverty programming trap. That's a trick of the enemy to get us to focus on lack. Because we live in a world and our God is abundant and everything is unlimited. And you're one idea away from change. So love you all. I pray that you would not be a victim to the poverty programming trap, but that you would be a victor in your life, that you would be the hero that matters for your family. You may not have come from a wealthy family, but I pray a wealthy family comes from you.
That's good.
That's
good. Before you leave, Kiara, I caught one thing you said when you said about you don't want to take your kids to Egypt. Just a little sense of humor. If you can go to Disney World with a family of 4, you can make it to Egypt. Amen.
Amen.
Look,
I ain't never looked up the info. I ain't never looked up the
$500 a head now, so you good.
Look, I love it. And look, planning a trip to Disney too.
There you go.
Amen. Good. I was trying to I was looking for this. I couldn't remember if I heard Kiara say it or one of my frat brothers, but I don't see how to control it. I'm gonna see if I can share it real quick. He said something that kind of reminded me of what Kiara just said, and it's a reel though, so I don't know if I know how to stop it, but I'm gonna see if I can share it with the sound. And let me see if I can start it over. Let me see if it'll let me start it over. Well, I saw one of my frat brothers say this the other day, and it kind of reminded me of what Kira was just talking about.
About yourself. Well, why, Mr. Inspiration Station? I'm so glad you asked. Because your body does not know the difference. You see, words have power. They have creative ability. Words are energy and they cast spells, which is why it's called spelling. You see, the good book says, you shall have whatsoever you say, whatever comes out of your mouth, whatever you pontificate. So change the way that you talk, the way that you speak about yourself, and you can change your life. I'm your man, Anthony Henderson, speaker extraordinaire. Have a marvelous Monday.
Let's listen to it one more time so we can hear the beginning.
Don't speak negatively about yourself. Well, why, Mr. Inspiration Station? I'm so glad you asked. Because your body does not know the difference. You see, words have power. They have creative ability. Words are energy, and they cast spells, which is why it's called spelling. You see, the good book says, you shall have whatsoever you say, whatever comes out of your mouth, whatever you pontificate. So change the way that you talk, the way that you speak about yourself, and you can change your life. I'm your man, Anthony Henderson, speaker.
And so I thought about that, as Kira was talking, that you got to think it. And then once you think it, because whatever in the heart, that's what's going to come out the mouth. And but as long as you think and speak low, that's all you're going to get. But if you can see yourself doing more than maybe even you were trained to do or programmed to do, I think it gets to that place to where now you see yourself doing things that you never thought that you could do. But I was struggling. I couldn't remember if that was Kier or Tony. But I think that kind of helps us what we were talking about now. But I want to thank everybody for joining us. And if you enjoyed it, please share it with a friend. And Kiera, is that it?
Yeah, that is it. That is it.
All right.
Stay away from that property programming, chap.
That's it. All right. So y'all have a good one. God bless you. May the grace of God be with you for now and forevermore. Bye-bye.